Hmm. Hello. Once again, we're going to do another SACSlym Talks About Stuff. So let's move on to the next question. Next question comes from ABW, which is, what are my thoughts on having traditional squad roles, machine gunner, grenadier, etc., instead of just a fuckload of riflemen? Well, let's look at it from two angles first. First off, let's look at it from you have a team and you want to organize your team. When it comes to that sort of instance, it comes down to what your team is and who is on your team. Because not anyone can be a saw gunner. Not anyone can be a grenadier. People can learn, potentially, but the vast majority, you either start off being a saw gunner or you're never going to be able to do it. Because it comes with an understanding that as a saw gunner, your role is primarily to lay suppressive fire for your squad mates to essentially move up in for the kill, or to proceed across the street, or what have you. It's a role that requires someone to, one, be able to hold the trigger down, and two, have the equipment that can handle holding the trigger down. And then number three, of course, is that just simply a mentality and capability of doing all those things necessary to be a saw gunner. Then, of course, the same thing comes for a grenadier. Grenadier is also a very technical role. You need to have equipment that works in order to be a good grenadier, and that's a very difficult thing for a lot of airsofters to have. I mean, if you were to sift through like a lot of the majority of players who were out there on the field with you, they may look the part, they may act some of the part, but their equipment in most cases cannot actually hold up to that. They will have failures. So in a team sense, if you have skilled members who are capable, have the equipment, and really want that role, and are always going to jump into that role, then yeah, you assign that role out, and you have it set up that way. But in other cases, I generally think that most teams should, for these newer ones, younger ones, what have you, stick with the rifleman mentality and really just work on their core set of skills. For an event sort of methodology in terms of having assigned roles, it really is a system of control. We've seen like a lot of games starting to use a system of semi-auto only for all weapons beyond assigned saw rolls, and saw rolls also requiring that you have a specific kind of gun that fits within that realm of realism of what a machine gun should be like. And it really does work within that methodology, because it really creates when anyone can fire full auto, when everyone's shooting the same caliber, everyone's shooting around the same general velocity, there really is there are definitely advantages to a saw in terms of its drum mag, but they're really in terms of the realism of if you were in a real war of a saw versus a rifle, it's in terms of airsoft, in comparison to that, it's like night and day differences. So what that does is that by that system there creates that sort of balancing effect where, yeah, a rifle cannot perform the same way as a saw at all, therefore it works out that way. The thing about that, though, and again, it returns back to the prior part I was talking about, which is that a lot of people don't actually have equipment. They can look the part, but they don't have the equipment to actually fit the part. Is that if you were actually to go to a lot of those events, though, and actually go through the roles of people who put themselves in, or had their squad leaders put them in a machine gun or grenadier related role, you'd actually find that most of them also don't have the equipment to fill in those portions. So if anything, I'd say that it's a good idea in context, like it works out, but in practice, in terms of its practice, like it requires, in terms to be effective for a team, it requires some sort of pre-planning, or people to put more effort into understanding what makes a good gun, whether their equipment is set to go. I mean, yeah, sure, you look pretty in your uniform, but is your machine gun capable of firing off 80,000 rounds at 390 FPS for an entire weekend? Can it do that? If it can't do that, then you really shouldn't be a saw. If you want to be a grenadier, you need to ask yourself, do my grenades always fire off? Will my rockets actually land where I can aim them at? Have I practiced this? And That was especially one where I bet you almost 95%, 96% of the people out there have not done anything of like to that measure. So it's a good idea in context. It really is. But in practice, again, it comes down to the player to make sure they have their shit together, and a lot of the time they don't. And so yeah, that's pretty much what I would say is my overall look on it. It's again good idea. Just needs a little bit more player interaction on that end to make it work thoroughly and well every single time. So, like everything, up to you guys. So that's that.